12, Amendment 53. Baroness Bowes of Berkhamsted.
My Lords, I wish to thank Baroness Altman, Lord Carlisle and Lord Stevenson for supporting this amendment, which limits the disapplication of the Consumer Credit Act in Clause 12 to being only insofar as it relates to affordability. There is no disagreement with disapplying affordability criteria, given that the government has asked banks to speed up loans and dispense with the usual due diligence on affordability. But we can see no reason for disapplication for unfair treatment, such as in default measures, which has been at the centre of more than one SME banking scandal. And it's not an unreasonable amendment, because disapplication for affordability is exactly the same measure that has been introduced throughout the Lending Standard Board's voluntary lending code. So why does the government have to go further in disapplying remedies for all unfair treatment under this bill, rather than limiting it to affordability? Apart from micro businesses, there is no regulatory protection for business loans or recovery procedures other than the measure the government now seeks to disapply. This was excruciatingly elaborated in the Financial Conduct Authority's report on RBS's global restructuring group, that the FCA had no regulatory power. It also said it was unlikely that the behaviour would have been caught by the senior managers regime had that applied. Andrew Bailey has since spoken at committees in Parliament and many other meetings, explaining how business lending and debt recovery is outside the regulatory perimeter. The Minister said in committee that the government have retained Financial Conduct Authority oversight for debt collection, meaning that lenders must comply with the Financial Conduct Authority rules on arrears, default and recovery. My Lords, those rules are only for loans up to 25,000 made to sole traders, unincorporated associations and partnerships of fewer than 4 people, that is, micro businesses. This bill deals with removing protection from loans up to £50,000, which is by far the majority of bounce-back loans, given that the average loan is £37,000. Why, when there is more restrained disapplication for micro businesses and also more restrained disapplication in the voluntary code, is the government so resistant to a similar compromise in this bill? Why is the government depriving most bounce-back borrowers from having the court's protection, at least for debt recovery? Why do I care so much about this, especially when the government is being generous with loans? I'm not disputing good intentions, but the high-profile government publicity surrounding the loans can be misleading. Constant reiteration of the good things about bounce-back loans, 100% guaranteed by government. Try again if the first lender declines you, and you can't be asked for personal guarantees. This is encouragement to apply and gives the impression that the government guarantee is coming into play for the benefit of the borrower. That's not the story, though. The government backs the lender. They are not a guarantor for the borrower, which is not stated on the Gov website, although I'm not sure everyone would understand the significance even if it were. The British Business Bank website says, and the collection of these loans will be regulated, meaning that, should businesses encounter financial difficulty, lenders will have to comply with relevant regulation. That's the non-existent regulation for the majority of the loans, which are over £25,000. The BBB website also says lenders are not permitted to take personal guarantees or take recovery action over a borrower's personal assets, brackets such as their home or personal vehicle. whereas the minister stated in her replies that it's only the main home and main vehicle that are protected. Hence, it seems the bailiffs can go in and take everything else, tools of the trade, or maybe the kiddies' bikes. The minister also said in reply to me at committee that lenders must not require borrowers to pay any lender-levied fees of any description, including on default or any default interest, which also appears contradicted, for example, by the terms of bounce-back loans published by the Co-op and others, which says the bank may charge a fee to the borrower, representing the cost to the lender of the additional monitoring of the borrower and its financial position. And that's where the rot started with GRG. Other standard terms also apply, such as any default anywhere on any other loan with anyone can trigger default. So too can a bank, taking the view that the position of the borrower has declined since the making of the loan agreement. Given that a loan condition for a bounce-back loan is that the business has suffered from the effects of coronavirus, just about every loan is at risk of being defined as in default. Of course, not many defaulting people or companies can go to court, so what does it matter if that route is blocked? Well, the principle matters, the deterrent matters, and the comparison matters. It gives away that the government cares little about those that go under. The focus is on the economic benefit of survivors, a view, I must say, that was reinforced during the meeting that we had with the Minister and Treasury officials. The story of bounce-back loans in the future will be one of borrowers thinking the government has backed them. The usual debt recovery operations will be a sorry tale, even without bad behaviour. But in that event, the law has been changed, and that has consequences. Helpful though it is, borrowers should not have to rely upon the Ombudsman as the only arbiter. And in 2018, a Channel 4 dispatchers uncovered poor understanding and practices in the Ombudsman service, with employees saying there was never a recommendation for debt forgiveness. Further, a primary reference for the Ombudsman is the law of the land, and cutting that away for everyone other than micro businesses with smaller loans as a deliberate measure alters the balance. Is that the government's intention, to move the goalposts on fairness? I return to the statement that the Business Secretary made in the Commons. Yes, forbearance is part of these measures, and we would expect that very much to apply. And I want to know what the government is intending, and when will they step in with the guarantee to the banks? Is it before or after the bailiffs have been sent in? And why, when both the voluntary code and the under 25,000 consumer credit debt collection regulations have been amended to meet the same ends that I suggest, will the government not do something in this bill? Not to do so implies a specific intent. The underlying message behind this deliberate and unnecessarily wide disapplication of the law, especially for debt collection, is a dire one. And for that reason, I do intend to call a vote. I beg to move.